Dear colleagues, good afternoon. Glad to welcome you at the Moscow Urban Forum at the press conference of the Deputy Major on City Planning and Construction, Murat Husnulin. My name is Olga Nabatnikova. I'm the head of the editorship of RIA Novosti, the construction division. Mr. Husnulin, Moscow is often criticized by the Moscow citizens. But if you look at international studies, it's not all that bad. In the very same building, PricewaterhouseCoopers presented a research on 7 leading emerging mega cities. And Moscow is only behind Beijing. They're on many indicators, they're pretty much the same. So in your regard, what are the strong points Moscow has? And for you, why do you think this forum might be interesting for the Moscow development? Thank you. Indeed, when we get ready for such events, we analyze what has been done, what we plan to do, and more importantly, we look at what happens in other countries, in other cities. While preparing for this forum, we once again analyzed what we've done. And the most important part is that PwC did an independent research. They took 7 countries, 7 cities, some of them from the BRIC countries. And when we've seen this data, it was published today, I can say that we are a little bit behind Beijing, but in many points we are far ahead. I'd say that the biggest capital we have are people, and this is our biggest competitive advantage. Most of our people have high school education, and we have a great proportion of people with higher education. In terms of green areas, parks, we are an absolute leader. In terms of the concentration of economic capital on economic influence, we are absolutely a leader. In terms of the road and transport construction and infrastructure investments, we are a leader. In terms of public transportation, mostly by metro, we are a leader as well. And we are, of course, a leader in social benefits and social programs. We have no other country of the world, especially those we can compare ourselves with, have such social benefits for transportation, utilities, pensions, medicine, education. So if we compare ourselves with other cities, we're actually doing good. But of course, there are things we have some room for improvement in. Historically, we are lagging behind in terms of the number of roads. We've been behind in terms of the interconnection of the different transport systems. Metro, railroad work well, but they're not interconnected that well. We have quite a big number of on-the-ground public transport, but it's not integrated with the rest of the system. We need to improve the easiness of conducting a business. We have to improve the security. We have to improve our healthcare system. We haven't studied why our healthcare has less points than other cities. We have to look at that. We have quite a good ecology environment, but what is a negative point, of course, is the expenses or the cost of conducting a business, of starting up a business. It is quite expensive for the moment. Based on this study, and an independent study, I would like to drive your attention to the fact that It's not that bad. But participating at 2 of the stations and at the urbanists meeting with Mr. Sebanian, I can say that big cities face almost identical problems, and our main topic today was the periphery. So how cities develop its periphery. So if you look at other cities and how they deal with this problem, I would like to say that we're doing good again. I think that that's thanks to our fathers, our grandfathers. They've designed these residential districts. Everyone criticizes them. On one of the first sessions, they've been showing how these quarters have been planned in Paris and in London. So the fact that we've planned them with parks, with green areas, with wide streets, normally people criticize. Well, if you compare ourselves with other cities, it's quite of an advantage. We have some reserves, some room for building green areas, transport infrastructure. One of the speakers mentioned that we have quite a big pedestrian interconnectivity. It was quite a surprise for me learning that 20% of those who live in these areas, they do not go to the downtown. They're just used living in this neighborhood without going out. For me, it was a surprise. 38% go out once a week. That was a surprise for me as well. We thought that we are used to think that we do have labor migration that go from the outside of Moscow to the city, but we do not think about the internal movement, internal transportation. In the end of December, we will finalize the calculation together with our telecom operators on how many people are moving around the city, how they're moving, especially in the public transportation, to understand what they're doing. So this is what we're finalizing right now. By the beginning of the next year, it will be ready. So making a forecast and making an analysis of all these indicators, I could say that comparing to the PwC's report in 2011, we improved many of the points. So that means we're doing our job, maybe with some mistakes, but I think we're doing our job, and the trend, the policy, the city policy is the right one. We are commissioning a record level of square meters in real estate. We're building a record number of roads, 15 infrastructural objects, and we are actually conducting a huge construction in metro, in the subway. And I would say that in terms of roads and metro, we are probably number 2 in the world. By 2015, 2016, we would be number 1 in terms of the transport construction. We are, of course, trying to reduce the slag we're having with what we have in the development. But I'd say that Moscow is pretty much a good city. You should love your city. So now I'm ready for the questions. Questions to the first room. I think there are some questions as well. Konstantin Balakin from RIA Novosti. Mr. Husnulin, I would like you to speak about a little bit about the project we're discussing in Moscow on renewing 5-floor buildings, five-story buildings, those that would not be demolished. Indeed, we have discussed that on the Committee for City Planning. It's kind of a good project, but in order to really approve it and adopt it, I would say that we have to make it on the legislative level. We have to prepare a tender. So we need to make some preparation work for that. But if we take just the gist of this project, the how we see it, it's a good project. investors propose to demolish 15 buildings that are too old and move people out of them. Why they're doing that? Because they've bought a land lot just next to this to the land lot where these buildings are. So they have apartments. They can move the people in, where they can move the people in, and that's why they can propose this project. We're of course interested because often we're proposed to demolish 5-story buildings, but instead of that, maluse it and just build a business center there. So in this case, they're moving people out of these houses. They are ready to build kindergartens, they are ready to build schools, they are ready to build business centers, and using their own money, rebuild the whole district. So we think it's kind of a good option. It's an interesting option. We will put this project on the mayor's desk in the next future, and if it goes on, we will multiply this. We will scale up this to other districts as well. Another question. Riyadh agency. So that it has been said that it is quite a difficult task to coordinate city planning of Moscow city planning with the Moscow region city planning, region planning. This is a political issue, I would say. We are working in the close contact with our colleagues from the Moscow region. We have joint working groups officially defined by Moscow and Moscow region, and I can officially tell you that we are implementing all the plans we've proposed ourselves with, and we work quite efficiently with the Ministry of Transport. All of the road reconstruction has been coordinated with the Ministry of Transport, something we haven't had in the previous time. We are doing a very good job together with the Russian railways, and we are doing a joint work in rebuilding railways, and every week we have meetings to understand what is needed, what effort is needed from the city side, from the Russian railway side. So we're doing good.
Elena Mamonova from Moscow Perspectiva newspaper. You've mentioned today that having such forum is very important to take management decisions. Can you tell us about which experience of which megapolises you use? Maybe you have some specific examples when a successful foreign model, like transportation infrastructure development model or something. Are there any examples of such models being applied here? Thank you for your question. Actually, when we have criticisms in the media that there are illiterate people working in management in government, and well, I say that if we have these cases of illiteracy, we involve foreign experts. For example, our Ministry for Big Paris city planning, he is our official consultant, and Urs Lira, he's our direct consultant. We have carried out an independent international tender, and all the participants are either directly or indirectly involved in developing the master plan. We have an official contract with ex-chief architect of Singapore. That's the person who created Singapore. He has a contract with us, providing us with consultations on master plan of the new Moscow. And I believe that Singapore experience is very important for us. We have tight ties with Beijing city planning institutions, and we have a lot of similarities between these two cities. And it's interesting how they resolve their issues with in Beijing and Beijing people are interested in us. 1.5 years ago, we visited them, we got acquainted with them, maintained the ties. Japanese experts have very good expertise. Tokyo City Development, for example, we have a direct contract with Namur Institute to use their experience in transportation system. Transportation-wise, Tokyo is very similar to Moscow. We have common problems, common issues. We use experience of Seoul as well. So we are preparing the adjustment to the master plan, and we are working on all the programs of city planning and building. Yet another question, please. Daria Orlova from Moskva FM. About 2 years ago, maybe slightly early, in the Department of Cultural Heritage meeting, you've mentioned that you had a walk downtown, and you were unpleasantly surprised with a number of sites under reconstruction or different derelict building, and you made this order for them to finish with all the refurbishments within 3 years. Yes, I'm quite happy with what we are having now. All these ruined buildings normally have very bad legal history. Either there were issues with ownership, with documents, and together with city property department, we have almost manually worked on each of such buildings. We have partially passed on partially this respective activities to other departments and ministries. So we are working actively in this area. We thought that 3 years would suffice, but there were certain difficulties that caused a delay. But we are working in an active way in this area. And in 2014, in 2015, we'll see refurbished, restored buildings downtown. So, the next question. Ekaterina Yeremina from Moskva Media. Recently, we had news that the mayor's office may terminate the contract with Sholkovskaya highway constructors. Is it going to happen, and what are the consequences in this case? Well, the contractual deadlines that are part of terms and conditions of the contract, they are very rigid, and if a company has won a tender and if it doesn't manage to comply with the provisos of the contract, be it the constructing company for Sholkovskaya highway or any other highway, the contract is going to be terminated if they do not manage to comply. Speaking of Sholkovskaya highway, we have an issue with terminating the ownership, one of the ownerships, and we have certain issues there. We have some delays, and we have some delays that the contractor is to blame for. So, as of now, it's the only case within the 3 years when we have delays in providing services within according to the contracts. We have created over 75,000 kilometers of roads and about 15 complex objects, and they have been all of them have been completed before the deadline. Alexander Rusakov, RIA Novosti. About half an hour ago, you've mentioned that some of the metro lines in Moscow are being built within foreign investment capital. I want to ask you, which are those lines? Yes, Mayor has set the task to focus on separate lines, considering the possibility of capital investment, not necessarily foreign capital. It might be direct investments, our Russian investments. So now we are doing the calculations, calculating the construction costs, calculating the commercial construction costs, and maybe we'll have an auction. But that's the initial stage of our activity, of these activities, and we believe that maybe that's how we may create the new line in Moscow, starting from the so-called Novatorov station, maybe the line starting from Kozhukhovskaya. So in any case, we are working on this. We are designing, we are calculating, and depending on the financial state of the city, depending on the conditions, we are going to offer investment involving investments. So I want to bring you back to the subject. I'm sorry. I want to remind you that the subject of the Third Moscow Urban Forum is development, urban development of the cities, developing the periphery. What is it for Moscow? Is it New Moscow? Is it industrial areas? What are the main highlights here? Of course, it's industrial areas. It's huge development potential, but you need to understand that there was a reason behind not implementing these plans. We have observed these attempts, and nowadays it's not only the attempts. We have made decisions covering 13 million square meters. And we have started construction of 4 million square meters. Of course, we are speaking about the millions. Of course, it can be comparable with certain towns. And you need to understand the scale. The scale of construction is enormous, and revenue, direct and indirect revenue from this is of utmost importance to the budget. We need to support this. So we have some room in the industrial areas. We have certain. We have Zanino, which is not an industrial area, several hectares with good transportation availability. And the road leading there too is going to be restructured. In the nearest time, everything is going to be commissioned, and we need to develop this area. And nowadays, this territory is abandoned. It doesn't bring any taxes or anything. We have similar territory called Nagatinsky Zaton, where we want to construct a kids' entertainment park, and we are preparing the documents currently. We have Mnevniki area as a potential territory for development, which is also now abandoned. So these big areas that are not being used by the city, they are all considered in our construction plans. Other questions? The lady from Moscow Media. Please wait for the microphone. Your colleague, Sergei Levkin, was saying that nowadays amendments to the federal law are being developed. Thanks to them, private investors will have easier ways of of taking part in construction. Well, let us be more specific when we get this piece of legislation coming into effect. When these amendments are introduced, we'll see. As for Moscow, rented housing market creation is a strategic task for Moscow. Unlike other megapolises, we have a huge gap between owned housing and rented housing. In all the megapolises, the share of rented housing is much higher. But of course, we had this story of free privatization, and we didn't have any legislative mechanisms of regulating this process. Maybe it wasn't that important back then. And these amendments, of course, are very important, and we hope that the market of rented housing is going to develop. It's not only about economic factors. It's important for transportation. If we have a good balance of quality and price of the housing, then people will be able to rent places in a more convenient place for them, closer to work, and they won't be commuting that much. So it will have a direct influence on the transportation system. So that's a big advantage to be considered. Голос России radio station. The following question. There are a lot of Turkish construction company working in construction sites. What's your view of their activity? Are you interested in Turkish companies or foreign companies? Oh, foreign companies include, in particular, Turkey companies. We don't have a big share of foreign companies in the market. We have several companies. EMCO, Renaissance. This company develops very fast. Some companies you mentioned, they are constructing okay. If they get jobs, then it means there is demand for those services. And I want to draw attention to the fact that foreign investors mostly conclude contracts with them. For some reason, they prefer concluding contracts with foreign companies. I believe that foreigners should work in the market. We shouldn't be afraid of it. It's competition. The only thing is that the taxation policies, taxation situation should be the same for all companies. Nowadays, problem with companies that they use unqualified workforce. Foreign capital inflow. Well, I believe it's possible for the foreign companies to take part in these activities. And we have over 200 foreign contractors working on metro construction, like companies from Spain, Germany, Poland, other. They are very highly skilled employees, and it's very good. So if you have other questions, then let us make it brief, because he is in a hurry. I was just reminding the subject of the Urban Forum. The press had the information about city getting 43 underground streets, which will have even something like movie theaters there, or grow mushrooms there. Is it just fantasies or anything? I heard of these initiatives before that. I can even name the specific media source.
Well, when I've learned about it, I've just called my colleagues asking if that was serious. Well, we do have a program for developing underground spaces, and we do build a lot underground. If you look at how many constructions is being done underground, how many metro stations, how many parkings we're building underground. But speaking about building a city underground, that's nonsense, because we're not going to build a city underground. We will develop these spaces. We will introduce standards and regulations for that, because it requires special standards, but no cities will be built underground. No more questions. Everyone is tired. We've been working till 10 a.m. So Alexander Lysakov, I wanted to also ask you about paid crossings on the railways. We've looked at the Kaluga region. There's a good experience saying that, well, there is an existing free crossing and there is another one which is a paid one. It's quite a cheap alternative, cheap fee, low fee, and as we have like 60 of them in the Moscow region, in Moscow, considering the one that we have in the new Moscow, we would not have enough budget money to build them. The first of them would be built using budget money, because we know that the efficiency of the railways should improve. But on, say, secondary crossings, we can make secondary crossings. We can make them attracting investors. We're now looking at city plans. We're now looking at the road networks, because to build a cross the railway, you need a road, right? You cannot build it in the middle of nowhere. So if economically is going to be feasible, why not? But for the moment, we don't see that option. So as there are no more options, let's finalize our press briefing. Thank you very much, Mr. Husnolin, and in the end, you can get the handouts.